Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. Sorry I'm running a few minutes late. I guess I had a piece of Snickers bar there. Anyhow, I had a day that went a little longer with my patient care than I had wanted to, so that's why I'm here a few minutes late. But we'll have plenty of time to go ahead and spend together tonight trying to figure out what to do to help you improve your situation with Lyme disease. The way that these webinars work, you get to create them with your questions. So no two webinars are the same. Sometimes I do cover the same material from one webinar to the next, but it's always a little bit of a different twist as well too. During the webinar tonight, you get to create the webinar with your questions. And the way you do that is on the right-hand side of your screen. So over there, you're going to see a chat box, and you can write your questions to me using that chat box. I will then post them as I answer them. It is unlikely I'll be able to get through everybody's questions, and because of that, I usually will take no more than one question per person. I am doing a recording of the webinar tonight too, and tomorrow in your email you will get a notice of the, excuse me just a minute, you'll get a notification of the recording being available, and also in that email tomorrow morning you'll be able to sign up for the next webinar. I want you to know I am taking next week off as I'm going to be, or the next webinar off, as I'm going to be on my way to a conference actually, a medical education conference. So I won't be here on that Wednesday night, but then there'll be webinars on the following 2 Wednesdays. So we have 3 webinars in the month of May. And just I'm going to have to take a break between this week and the next one. So write your questions to me. I will go ahead and display them on the screen. Those of you that are watching the webinar live tonight will actually get to see those questions. For those of you that are not watching live, the way that you'll be able to hear the questions or to know about the questions is I have to read them. So you will see me read them as we go through the webinar tonight too. And I see a lot of participants tonight, and we actually have a lot of questions. So let me go ahead and jump in and get started. I'm glad to see many familiar faces here, but lots of new names on my viewer list as well tonight too. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and post the first question up here. So this is from Deborah. Hi, Dr. Ross. I have neuropathy of both feet, very slight in both hands. The pain increases a lot if I'm sitting any length of time, and my feet become cold. I'm better with my feet elevated. My blood pressure runs low, and I'm being treated for BABS, Lyme, and Bartonella for over a year without much improvement in my feet. Any idea? So let me just bear with me here a minute, Deborah. I want to make sure that there wasn't an ending part to that question. It does look like you got the whole thing in there. Oh, there's a second part. You said, what can help with this or what the cause is? Okay. So neuropathy of the feet, everyone, neuropathy means injury to the nerves. And signs of injury to the nerves can be numbness, and sometimes nerves that are injured hurt. So people sometimes have a burning sensation. Sometimes they'll have, excuse me, everyone, I'm sorry. That Snickers bar that I just had has left a few pieces of peanuts in the back of my throat, and it's just irritating there. So you may see me have to sip on water just to kind of help deal with that here in a minute, okay? Let me take one more, and I'll try to get back to answering that. Anyhow, what happens when you have injury to the nerves is you can have numbness and you can have pain sensations, and you may even have sensitivity changes to hot and cold as well too. The most common kind of injury to nerve pain is a burning sensation that people will get. So it sounds like you've got neuropathy. Okay, that's what neuropathy is. Now, the infections that can give neuropathy are Lyme and or Bartonella. So one thing that you would want to make sure is that there has been fair consideration and treatment for Bartonella, because sometimes doctors won't treat for that. As many of you know from the webinars, that I believe that the testing for Bartonella is not reliable. So you have to look at what the clinical picture tells us. And so if there are enough symptoms that suggest Bartonella, then Bartonella should be treated. That's my opinion, okay? The reason testing isn't that useful for Bartonella is if we look at we have a sense that probably there are about 30 different strains of Bartonella, or we know there's about 30 different strains. Many of those are animal strains, but we do think that they can impact us as humans. We only have testing that's good for 2 strains, though. So there may be 30 strains, we can only test for 2. So in considering if somebody has Bartonella, I treat based on whether they have enough symptoms that suggest that Bartonella could be there, all right? So symptoms that make me wonder about Bartonella can be ongoing anxiety, can be increased day sweating, restless legs, so feeling like you need to move your legs around a lot, irritation or irritable bladder, so you may pee frequently or may have urge to pee frequently, severe cognition problems, so severe thinking problems, that often can be a sign of Bartonella as well too, and head pressure. Those are some things that we might see with Bartonella. Also, sometimes people with Bartonella get these a rash on them that looks like stretch marks or scratch marks, okay? Those are clues that make you think about Bartonella too. So first of all, Deborah, make sure if you have a possibility of Bartonella that that's been treated. Right. The second thing you want to do is take some steps to repair the nerves. And so the nerve covering is, or a nerve, a nerve cell has an outer membrane that's made up of a double layer of fat called phospholipid fats. And sometimes those phospholipid fats get injured, so we can repair them. In addition, when nerves are injured, it is possible that the energy factories in them also get injured. Those energy factories are called mitochondria. And in fact, mitochondria are found in every one of our cells, all right? So by some estimates, each cell in us has an estimated 300 to 400 mitochondria. And so when you're repairing nerves, you have to repair mitochondria and repair the membrane of the nerves, all right? So there's a few things I like to do in my protocol that I use to repair nerves. And I actually have there's an article I have about this too, and I'll show that to you here in a little bit within the Treat Lyme book, all right? So first thing I like to do is to repair the covering, repair the fat membrane covering. And the steps you take to repair the fat membrane covering will also repair the membrane covering of your energy factories called the mitochondria. And that is, I like to use phospholipids, the kind of phospholipid fats that make up those coverings. And their primary 2 are something called phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylserine. And you can find those in a supplement called NT Factor, or you can find them in another one called ATP Fuel. They're both made by a company called Research Nutritionals. And I prefer the NT Factor though. All right, there's studies showing the NT factor in terms of energy, that if you use it for at least 2 months, there's average energy improvements of 40%. So just fixing your mitochondria energy membranes can actually give you good energy, all right? But I usually like to start the NT factor at 2 pills 3 times a day. And then I'll do that for 2 months. And then after 2 months, I will decrease it to 1 pill 3 times a day. And I continue to use that for at least 4 months, all right? Now, NT Factor and ATP Fuel are both made by Research Nutritionals. The big difference between the two is the ATP Fuel has coenzyme Q10 in it as an added nutrient, all right? You should not use ATP Fuel if you are on Mepron or Malarone for your Babesia, if you happen to have Babesia. Coenzyme Q10 makes it so those 2 drugs that we use sometimes for Babesia, it makes it so that they don't work effectively, okay? All right, so that's one thing. Okay, second thing you want to do to help repair your nerves is to use a good antioxidant that builds a substance called glutathione. So glutathione is the master reparative, restorative antioxidant that is made in every one of our cells. And inside the cells, it's used to repair cell damage. It's also made in high concentrations in the liver, and it's used in the liver to help with detoxification, okay? You can use a substance called N-acetylcysteine, also known as NAC, 500 milligrams 3 times a day to build up the glutathione levels, both in your mitochondria and in the nerve cells, okay? Or you could just take glutathione, and there's an oral preparation of glutathione. If you do oral glutathione, though, sometimes it's poorly absorbed. So you want to use a variety that's microscopically wrapped in fat. We call that liposomal glutathione. Again, I like using a product by Research Nutritionals that is liposomal glutathione. And that is something called Tri-Fortify Orange. It's 400 milligrams or 5 milliliters, 400 milligrams 1 time a day is what you would do with that. So use NT Factor and build glutathione either by taking N-acetylcysteine, NAC, 500 milligrams 3 times a day, or just take the glutathione directly, okay? The NAC is a little bit cheaper, though. I just want to let you know that, all right? All right, third thing you want to do if you are not treating for Babesia is to be on coenzyme Q10, but at higher amounts than you're going to find in the ATP fuel. And so I like to have people take 400 milligrams of coenzyme Q10 twice a day, okay? And that's my nerve repair formula. The other thing you can do, if you are not eating red meat at least one time a week, you may be low in a key nutrient that helps your mitochondria work so that you have energy to repair your nerves. And that's a substance called carnitine. I like using acetyl L-carnitine. Carnitine is a transport vehicle that carries fat from the outside of the mitochondria into the inside of the mitochondria, where it can be burned through a bunch of chemical reactions into cell fuel. If you don't eat red meat, you are probably low in carnitine, and therefore you can't bring enough nutrients to the inside of your mitochondria to be burned into cell fuel. So if that is your situation, if you're not a red meat eater, you want to take acetyl L-carnitine, 500 milligrams, one pill twice a day for 1 month, and then decrease it to one pill a day. Okay, so my nerve repair formula is the same as my mitochondria energy factory repair formula. And that is NT factor, 2 pills 3 times a day for 2 months, decrease then to 1 pill 3 times a day after that for 4 months. Raise glutathione by taking either NAC 500 milligrams 3 times a day or glutathione, a liposomal variety, and you want to do that as 400 to 500 milligrams 1 time a day. And then use coenzyme Q10, 400 milligrams twice a day. And finally, if you are not a red meat eater, add in some acetyl L-carnitine, 500 milligrams twice a day for a month, and then decrease it down to 1 time a day after that, okay? And then again, Deborah, don't forget, make sure that you've had your Bartonella treated if it hasn't been, or consider if you need Bartonella treatment. Neuropathy by itself does not mean Bartonella, but if you have enough other symptoms, then you need to think about whether you have Bartonella, all right? So let me just do a quick screen share here, everyone. I just want to show you our Treat Lyme book, where you can find some of this information I was just talking about. All right, so this is the Treat Lyme book. I'm back here at our main site. This is the treatlyme.net. And the main content of treatlyme.net is the whole Treat Lyme book. And here's the table of contents, okay? Also on this site, you can sign up for the webinars. I'm just down here on the lower left-hand side, all right? The other thing you'll find is the Lyme disease treatment guidelines I have. They give you great ideas to treat Lyme. You could share those with your healthcare providers too. And this other one I'll point out, I'll probably mention later, is my online consults, where if you need some help trying to give direction to your physicians or what to do with your care, and you don't want to become an established patient here at the Healing Arts Partnership, I can still visit with you online and give you some treatment recommendations. So you might want to take a look down there. All right. So in terms of how do you figure out if you have Bartonella, or for that matter, any of the illnesses that person has in Lyme, take a look at this chapter called How to Diagnose. And in terms of how do you figure out if you have Bartonella, take a look at the article called It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia, the Symptoms and Signs. Okay. That's where I would take a look at that one, all right? And then in terms of what to do about your nerves, again, I just told you what to do, but I want to let you know I have a whole chapter on brain and nerve repair, and you should take a look at this, okay? So first of all, I did not mention it, but take a look at the diet that I recommend for nerve and mitochondria repair. And then here is the whole article on repair, neuropathy repair, heal that tingling, numbness, and pain, okay? And actually, that is no longer one of our free articles, but if you do get a subscription to the Treat Lyme book, you can read this and many other helpful articles that I have put together to help people with Lyme disease, all right? All right, let me go back here. All right, there we are. So, Deborah, I know that was long-winded, but there's some big parts to that question, okay? And what I want to let you know is anything I just said for nerve repair is also mitochondria repair. Everyone, mitochondria repair to help improve a person's energy is something that I will look at doing if we're about 6 to 9 months into somebody's treatment and they are not getting any energy improvements. I might think about doing mitochondrial repair. I don't do it right up front, but it is something I'll add later in a treatment, okay? Because many other parts of how I address Lyme disease and the Lyme disease treatment guidelines, take a look at that later if you're not familiar with my Lyme disease treatment guidelines. Many of the other things that I say to address Lyme disease and get over Lyme will help your energy without having to directly repair the mitochondria. Not everyone needs to repair their mitochondria for energy or for nerve repair, all right? All right, there you go. That's a lot. Let me go ahead and move on here. All right, let's see. Hi, Brenda. Let's see. Thank you, Dr. Ross. I appreciate your help. I asked my doctor to add Bactrim to my Lyme protocol, but I was unaware the sun sensitivity is a side effect. Does Bactrim cause sun sensitivity as severe as doxycycline and minocycline? I am still getting a sun rash from the doxy I stopped taking. So, Brenda, it's a good question. So, in terms of, it is true, the tetracyclines, doxycycline and minocycline, can cause sun sensitivity. Doxycycline, in terms of the tetracyclines, is a lot worse, though. Minocycline, sometimes you may not even get sunburning on minocycline, but doxycycline, generally, most people will get easy sunburning. Bactrim can cause some sun sensitivity, but it's minor. It usually is not enough to have to stop treatment. Usually, sunscreens will be enough to block it, and most people don't get sun sensitivity on Bactrim. But it is a concern, but it's much less. It's like a baby concern compared to the amount of sun sensitivity that you might have on the tetracyclines. They're not even closely related, okay? That's in general, all right? So anyhow, you might want to still give it a try. Just be a little more careful in terms of either covering up or using sunscreen on that first day that you give it a try, and maybe limit your sun exposure to like an hour or 2 hours or so, see what kind of sun sensitivity you do have. But I suspect you're not going to have much at all right? Good luck to you, Brenda. All right, let's see. Hello, Casey. Can Banderol and Cemento be taken in place of antibiotics for the prevention of Lyme following a tick bite? If so, how many drops and how long? So the answer is yeah, but the trouble is I don't know how effective it is, because most of us I have a greater working knowledge of the success of prescription antibiotics, and that's what I tend to grab for, because I don't want to horse around. I want to work with what I do know works, okay? So let me just say a few things. So when you get an acute tick bite, the preferred treatment is a tetracycline. And the reason the preferred treatment is a tetracycline is it will treat Lyme, but it will also treat some of the Lyme co-infections, those other tick-borne germs that you can get, like Bartonella, like Babesia, like Anaplasma, like Ehrlichia, okay? So the reason most of us recommend going with a tetracycline, a doxycycline right away, or a minocycline, is that you're not just getting at Lyme, you may be able to eliminate any co-infections that get transmitted too. Now, I would never use a doxycycline or a minocycline by themselves to treat somebody that has full-on Bartonella or Babesia, but in the setting of an acute tick bite, they might be enough to prevent those germs from getting locked into you, okay? And your Banderol Cemento won't touch those other germs. The Banderol Cemento is probably only useful against Lyme. And I know of its success in chronic Lyme, but I don't have enough working knowledge to know if it is useful in an acute tick bite setting to get Lyme out. If you were to do it, though, I would recommend probably going right up to the top dose of 30 drops twice a day. I would never do that in somebody with chronic Lyme because it might clobber the person too much. But in an acute setting, you probably need to hit it hard, okay? That's where I would recommend going with that, all right? If you do, be aware you might get herxheimer reaction with that too, Casey, okay? All right, good luck with, and thank you for that question. Good luck to you. All right, let's see here. Oh, that's Casey's question. Let me get rid of that. I'm sorry. Hello, David. If Lyme disease causes symptoms that look like Parkinson's disease, will Parkinson's drugs relieve those symptoms? The answer is yeah. So everyone, there are Lyme disease can be a cause, not the only cause, okay, but can be a cause of many severe neurologic conditions. So for instance, some people that have Lou Gehrig's disease or ALS, Lyme can cause that. Some people that have multiple sclerosis, Lyme can be the cause of their multiple sclerosis. And some people that have Parkinson's disease or Parkinson's syndrome, Lyme disease can be a cause of that, all right? And so if Lyme is a cause of the Parkinson's, the neurologic problem that it causes is the same neurologic problem that occurs in anyone with Parkinson's. And there is a dysfunction of an area of the brain that releases certain neurologic chemicals that can make it so you have tremors. Main Parkinson's symptoms tend to be tremors, kind of a flat, expressionless face. Eventually, cognition gets caught up in that too. But what can help are certain Parkinson's medications. And regardless of whether it's Lyme causing that problem in the brain or something else causing those Parkinson-like symptoms, yes, the Parkinson drugs can help in the situation of Lyme that triggers Parkinson's disease. All right? All right. Good luck with that. Thanks for that question. All right, let's see. Hi, Sherry. Let me just take a quick step here. I started antibiotics a few weeks ago for Lyme, Bart, and Babesia. And it's, let's see, amoxicillin and clavulanic acid. That's also called Augmentin, everyone. Hydroxychloroquine is Plaquenil. Sulfamethoxazole trimethoprim is Bactrim, also called Septra. And Malarone is an antimalarial that we'll sometimes use to treat Babesia, all twice a day. I'm feeling worse than ever. Severe migraines. Oh, Sherry, let's see here. It looks like there's a second part to your question here. Eye pain, fatigue, etc. I'm worried about the eye pain. Any thoughts? I'm experiencing side effects or a herx. Okay. I'm going to go back just so I can relook and post what you're taking so that everyone can see that, all right? So you've got more eye pain and fatigue. So it is very possible this is all a Herxheimer reaction. Let me break apart what you're doing here. So Malarone is used to treat Babesia. The Bactrim sulfamethoxazole trimethoprim can be used to help treat Babesia, but it also can be used to treat the co-infection Bartonella. I generally am not going to use it as a treatment for Lyme. I know some of my colleagues do. I just don't find it helpful for that situation, for the Lyme germ, that is, okay? The hydroxychloroquine is also known as Plaquenil. It's a quinine derivative. It might help with your Babesia. Some of my colleagues still use it to treat the cyst form of the Lyme germ, and I don't like it for that reason because there's competing science. Some science says it might get rid of the cyst form of Lyme, but other science says that it may promote cyst formation. So I generally don't like it. And I'm questioning with its placement here, if your doc may be using it more as part of a Babesia treatment or whether they're using it for cyst. I just don't find it useful for cyst, okay? In terms of how I look at your treatment, you're only on one antibiotic killing Lyme, and that's the amoxicillin clavulanic acid. That treats spirochete Lyme, but your treatment right now is not doing anything to, in my opinion, to address intracellular Lyme and cyst Lyme. You are not on any agents that I think that effectively do that. So you're not on a full Lyme treatment at this point. Could this treatment, though, be causing you to have a Herxheimer reaction? The answer is yes. And so what is a Herxheimer reaction, everyone? Well, it's feeling bad when you start Lyme antibiotics, but there's a reason for that. So when somebody has Lyme disease, the reason that they feel poorly is that their immune system is overproducing a group of chemicals called cytokines. And in fact, you'll see my latest article, which is only about a month and a half old now. I got to get back to writing again. I'm planning on it this weekend, actually, is updating some of the articles and some new articles too. But the latest article I wrote was one on cytokines, all right? So there's a whole article on what I'm about ready to tell you. But cytokines are good and bad. They're made by white blood cells when they see a toxin or Lyme or yeast or any kind of germ. And they're made in increased amounts because they help do good things. The good things they can do are turn the white blood cells on to fight infection, draw them to where the infection or toxin is, and help them work better, all right? But in Lyme and in mold toxin illness and sometimes in yeast, the immune system doesn't do a good job, and eventually it makes too many cytokines. And too many cytokines give you all of what we call Lyme symptoms, all right? So too many cytokines give you pain. They make it so you can't think. They disturb the sleep centers. They interfere with how your hormonal systems work. They make you ache all over. They can give you muscle wasting. And they can even suppress the immune system, even though they're supposed to help the immune system, okay? So in excess, they can actually lead to immune suppression, all right? So when you have a Herx reaction, what happens is the immune system sees all the dead bug parts and toxins that get released from killing the Lyme germs, and it makes more cytokines. So guess what gets worse? All of your underlying symptoms, because all of those underlying symptoms are cytokine symptoms, okay? Now, usually eye pain is not what I would call a Lyme symptom, but I have seen occasionally when we start treatment that eye pain can occur when somebody is in a Herx reaction. Your medications that you're on here, I do not see eye pain as a potential side effect, okay? In terms of helping with a Herx reaction, what I like to use is curcumin. Curcumin is a component of turmeric, the Indian seasoning turmeric. It gets inside of white blood cells and it helps lower cytokine production. You take it as a 500 milligram pill. You want to take a variety that is microscopically wrapped in fat, which increases the absorption of it, okay? There's a number of products out there. The one I like to use is a Thorne product that is microscopically wrapped curcumin. It's called Mariva 500. And 3 times a day. If that's not helpful enough, then you might go up to 2 pills 3 times a day, okay? The other thing you can sometimes add when you have an acute flare-up or an acute cytokine surge like this is glutathione. I've talked about that earlier tonight. Glutathione as 5 milliliters 1 time a day is a product called Trifortify Orange. That's a good way of getting the glutathione in my experience, what I see here in my practice, okay? So those are just some thoughts for you to consider there. But I don't think this is a side effect of the antibiotics, all right? So I'm going to do a quick screen share here, everyone, so you all can take a look at this later. All right, so I'm back in the Treat Lyme book. I'm going to go back to the table of contents. There is a chapter called Herxheimer Reaction and Cytokines. And take a look at the article called Control Cytokines, a Guide to Fix Lyme Symptoms in the Immune System, okay? So this is a most recent article that I have written about cytokines, and it gives you ways and ideas about how to lower cytokines, all right? And the reason I say you could fix the immune system this way is, again, too many cytokines when you have Lyme can start to suppress the immune system. So I give you ways to lower the cytokines here. So take a look at that article later, all right? All right, let me go back here. All right, Sherry, thank you for that question and good luck to you. All right, hello, Ross. I like your name, but I happen to be Marty Ross, so I'm a little biased there. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. In the Treat Lyme book, your dosage of Tinidazole for 14-day pulse is much higher than the dosage for the 5-2 pulse. Why the difference? Which one gets better results? I'm not sure why I wrote it that way. Let me just give you some dosing guidelines on the Tinidazole, all right? So you dose Tinidazole the amount you take in a day, irregardless of which regimen you're on. The way you use Tinidazole is you dose it on weight, all right? So a person that is 500 pounds or higher, 500 pounds, 150 pounds or higher is going, or heavier, I like to use 500 milligrams 3 times a day. If they're between 100 and 150 pounds, I like to use 500 milligrams twice a day. And if a person is under 100 pounds, I will do a 250 milligram pill 2 times a day. All right. Now, if I've got somebody that is a person prone to bad Herxheimer reactions, I might cut the doses I just told you in half as I begin the first week, because Tinidazole can give some pretty intense Herxheimer reactions. All right. All right. So if you're doing the pulsing of 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, you would take Tinidazole, and you're 150 pounds or higher, you would take Tinidazole 500 milligrams 3 times a day, 2 weeks in a row, and then 2 weeks off. If you're using it another way that I pulse, which is sometimes a 4 days on, 3 days off regimen, or a 5 days on, 2 days off regimen, and you're 150 pounds or higher, on the days you take it, you would take 500 milligrams 3 times a day. All right. So I'm not sure what I wrote. You have to go back and relook at some of those articles, but that you basically dose it, the amount you take per day is dependent upon your weight. Okay. And again, be a little cautious. If you're a person that tends toward bad herx reactions, you can get some pretty intense herxheimer reactions when you add Tinidazole into your treatment. All right. All right. Good luck to you, Ross. Thank you for that question. Let's see, I'm just getting rid of Ross's question there. All right, let's see here. Hello, Eric. Let's see. Have you heard about the ganglioside antibody test to test for autoantibodies against nerves? My wife has persistent peripheral neuropathy even with treatment. What do you think? I read about this in Dr. Horowitz's book. Thank you. You know, I don't have a feeling either way on it, to be quite honest. It isn't something I usually use in my practice. I tend to just look at neuropathy based on symptoms and then do the nerve repair work I told you about earlier, and also make sure I've treated for Bartonella and Lyme. But Dr. Horowitz is a smart man. I'm sure that he's got some good ideas on that. It isn't just something that I use in my practice, okay? All right, so I guess I don't have a comment for you on that one. Thanks for that question, Eric. All right, next question is from Jen. Hold on here, everyone. As I told you, I'm having some hard time with my throat this evening, so let me just take a sip of water here real quick. All right, let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Can you give your opinion on therapies like IV Myers cocktails? All right. So everyone, there is an IV nutrient, an intravenous nutrient vitamin treatment you can do called a Myers cocktail. And Myers cocktail, everyone, most of us that use Myers cocktails all have recipes for them that are kind of similar, but there might be some slight nuance changes, all right? So basically what a Myers cocktail has in it is vitamin C, somewhere around 5,000, 6,000 milligrams. It'll also have some vitamin B complex with multiple types of vitamin B. They tend to have something called pantothenic acid in it. There'll be some magnesium often that is added to it, and some calcium that is added to it as well. There will be some minerals that can sometimes be added to it too. All right, it's kind of what a Myers cocktail is. It's thought that it can help your immune system work better. The idea is sometimes when you get into really low energy states, that the mechanisms in your cells that help draw vitamins in don't draw them in well enough, don't carry the vitamins in. So that if you put a high constant, and so then the other thing that can happen, the way that nutrients can get inside of vitamins is either they get carried in by transport vehicles that our cells have, but if our cells are injured and they're not working well enough, sometimes the nutrients don't come in. The transport vehicles don't work. So another way that nutrients can get into our cells is that if you put enough of a concentration on one side of the cell membrane, like high levels in your bloodstream, they will diffuse, they will work their way across the membrane of that cell and force their way into the cell. So when you do IV vitamins, like a Myers cocktail, what you're basically doing is forcing high amounts of these vitamins into the bloodstream, and they will force their way into the cell. So it can be helpful in people that have energy depletions. I get mixed results with it. I used to do them fairly regularly with a lot of my patients. I don't find enough universal benefit anymore to do them. And my preference these days is just to work with a good oral multivitamin that can do the same. All right, so that generally is what I do with that, Jen. Thank you for that question. It's a good question. All right, let's see. Hello, is there audio? Yes, there is audio. I hope everyone is hearing me. Let me just double check. I'll be able to see, because if no one else is hearing me, there'll be a bunch of people that will have written that. Huh. All right. Well, it looks like no one else is having that problem. So I'm not sure what's going on your end there, Jen. I hope you were able to figure that out. All right. Next question is from Emily. Let's see. I've been on oral antibiotics for 2 years and have improved to a level of full function with some nagging issues, but I cannot go off of them without rapid relapse of symptoms. My LLMD wants me to begin IV antibiotics as a next step. Do you think this is necessary? Is there another option? I'm rereading here. You know, Emily, IV antibiotics sounds like a reasonable option. The trouble is, though, I can't give you a valid answer here because I would need to really sit down and review with you what you have been on and when, what kind of doses were you on. In other words, have the oral antibiotics been done in an adequate way? Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, in my opinion. So I would need to help give you the best advice. I would need to kind of just look at what you've done in your treatment in general and see if there's anything that's been missed before you would jump to that IV antibiotics. I use IV antibiotics in my practice maybe about 5% of the time. Most of the time, I'm able to get people well using just the oral regimens. There is two schools of thought here in the States. I call it the East Coast school and the West Coast school. The East Coast docs use a lot of IV antibiotics here in the States. And on our West Coast, we tend to go more with oral antibiotics. We all think we do great. They think they do great. We think we do well with how we advise people to be treated out here. To be honest, there's been no studies done that look at the relative effectiveness of oral versus IV antibiotics in similar patients, so we don't know. But I tend to stay with the oral antibiotics. So Emily and anyone, I'm just going to do a quick screen share here. All right. I hope everyone is seeing this now. I'm going to describe it. So at the treatlyme.net site, over on the left-hand column, there is a tab in the search menu or in the navigation menu called Online Consult. So I'm just clicking on that. Okay. Take a look here and see if my one-to-one medical consult service is right for you. Just two things: I can't prescribe and I cannot order tests without physically examining somebody. So this is limited in the fact that I can't do that. But to be honest with you, there's plenty of studies now that have been done that show that the ability to render good care without doing an exam is good. We learn enough in this disorder by just asking you questions and understanding what's happening without necessarily needing to do an exam. So often I can give you good advice that you can use with your physician or on your own to help create some real changes. All right. So take a look here. I go through the ins and outs of what it looks like. There's a whole disclaimer form that you want to take a look at to make sure you're comfortable with it too. All right. And I have openings for these types of visits at this time. So if you are interested, I would go ahead and get a hold of us and we tell you how to do that here. All right. All right, so let me go back here again. All right, thanks, Emily, and good luck to you there. I'm gonna get rid of your question here. All right, let's see here. Getting rid of that. So I understand there's a couple of people that are writing here that the screen goes black when I'm doing screen shares. I will try to do it a different way the next time, see if maybe we can get a different screen share that way. Okay, so I apologize if that's happening. There may be something technical going on that I'm not clear about here. I will also try to verbally describe what I'm doing so you know when you go to treatlyme.net later how you can find that information. Okay, all right. All right, so let me go ahead and move on here. Let's see. Yes, it has started. All right, let me go back here. Hello, E. Let's see. I have noticed that using a hot tub, steam rooms, and sauna along with swimming has helped my Lyme symptoms greatly. Can you explain why? Also, I live in New Hampshire, a tick-ridden area. What do you recommend for realistic avoidance of getting bitten by a tick again? Brand vitamin A. Oh, what brand of vitamin A do I recommend? So I don't have a specific brand of vitamin A that I recommend there, E. So sorry about that. Let's see. Let me go back. So hot tubs, steam rooms, and sauna all have one thing in common. It's called heat, okay? When you heat up, it can increase blood flow deep into your tissues. So whenever you heat up, one thing that our bodies will do is it will cause blood vessel dilation so that your blood vessels open up and get big in terms of how much blood volume they carry. And that even means the small blood vessels that go deep into your muscles and deep into your tissues carry more blood then too. And exercise is another way of increasing that blood flow. So you may feel better because you're getting better oxygenation, better carrying of oxygen, more blood is going to your tissues. It's also another way to increase the ability for your antibiotics, if you happen to be on those, to get into your tissues as well too. Okay, so it may have something to do with getting better blood flow and better oxygen levels to your tissues, and it may, if you happen to be on antibiotics, it just may be that it's helping your antibiotics to be able to work more effectively at killing the germs. All right. Let's see here. Also, so in terms of living in New Hampshire, boy, it's a tough one. So yeah, you're going to be exposed to ticks on a regular basis. One thing you want to do is definitely do tick checks when you come back in, but still you can even miss some of those. If you go out and you're out in the yard, you might want to wear long pants, pull those socks up over the bottoms of those pants as well too, long sleeves. You can take, you can use sprays on your skin that can help limit ticks from attaching. Excuse me. The strongest one is DEET. However, DEET is also neurotoxin, so that's not necessarily a great idea. There are some volatile oil skin sprays, I don't have a brand in particular, that you can spray in your skin that might repel the ticks, but there is no evidence that that stuff works great either. And then another thing to do is in your yards, so that you can decrease the amount of rodents in your yards that might carry ticks into your yards. You could use, you could put cotton balls out soaked in permethrin. And what rodents will do is they'll take those cotton balls and put them in their nesting, and the permethrin will actually kill ticks that would be on rodents. So you can decrease the potential ability for that. So what you can do, one way that I'll do it sometimes, is I'll just take a toilet roll, the tube that toilet paper was on, stuff it full of these permethrin-soaked cotton balls, and just place it around the yard as a means of kind of decreasing the potential of getting ticks that way, okay? But unfortunately, there's just not a good way sometimes to prevent. At times, what I will do with some of my patients that might have Lyme, that travel and are done being treated, they're more in a remission phase, and they travel to heavy tick-borne areas, I might even just put them on preventive antibiotics when they go into those areas. I do that sometimes with people that have especially had very severe Lyme and their remission is kind of on a tenuous place. I'm very careful with those people. That's what I'll do from out here, all right? So I'm sorry I don't have any better recommendations than that. All right, take care, E. Thank you for that question, or those questions, I should say. Hello, Kelsey. Let's see. The Treat Lyme book and NutriMedic bottles say to take 30 drops of Cemento and Banderol per dose, but I can barely get past 5 without herxing. I've heard of a lot of other people have this problem. Is this due to infection load, and are lower doses still effective? All right. So, it's interesting. I have my own philosophy about that, actually, but and let me tell you what it is. So first of all, there are some people that are just sensitive to herxheimer reactions, whether we use a Banderol Cemento or whether we use prescription antibiotics, all right? And some of that may just be that their system easily develops excess cytokines when you start killing germs. But there may be some other problems going on that I wonder about when I see a story like this. And that is, I wonder about the person that has easy herxing on anything, of having some impaired detox mechanisms, all right? So detox means your ability to clean toxins out and poisons out, like Banderol Cemento, all right? So it's a toxin. So when you take Banderol Cemento, it has to ultimately be cleaned out. Maybe it's cleaned out by the liver or the kidneys. Frankly, we really don't know. I haven't seen the studies done that say what the mechanism by which the body clears these toxins out of us, these poisons, these germ poisons out of us, okay? But some of us, I think, have impaired mechanisms to get them out. So what we're most interested in about drugs you take to kill germs is that you have good drug levels of them. Ultimately, that's what matters. Do you have enough in your blood to kill? All right. And what determines what's in your blood is how much do you take that goes into your blood, and how quickly does your body clean out those poisons, all right? So if you happen to be a person that has impaired detox, you may not clean those toxins out as fast as somebody that doesn't have impaired detox. Therefore, you don't need to take as much going in. So I wouldn't focus so much on how much you take. I mean, ideally, yeah, if you can work up to 30 drops twice a day, great. All right, but if you're not able to, and the best you can do is 5 drops twice a day, know you're getting good killing. And it is very possible that what may be happening is you have great drug levels because you're not cleaning it out as fast as some other people might. All right. So that's what I've come to see. That's what my opinion is of working with this, of seeing this happen over the years with a variety of my patients, actually. All right. All right. Thank you for that question. And good luck to you. Hello, Emily. Let's see. I asked because the potential. Emily asked earlier about IV antibiotics. So, a PICC line anytime, I think, has certain problems. There's a 15% chance when you use a PICC line to give IV antibiotics of developing complications. And the two complications are either getting bacteria infection in your bloodstream that works its way in through that line, or getting blood clots that form at the tip of the line. And the risk of either one of those events happening over a 6-month period of time appears to be about 15%. You have as great of a chance of that happening in the summer as the winter. Now, a PICC line, though, in the summer, you're going to have a harder time. It's going to limit your activities, I understand, because you can't go swimming as easily with the PICC line in, etc. So, Emily, I would still look at, I'd be glad to help you look and see, have you been handled effectively with oral regimens, okay? All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Sarah. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thanks for all you do for us. You're welcome. When I first got Lyme, I had the typical migrating muscle and joint pains. I don't have them anymore, but I do have pain down the front of my thighs, down to my knees when I walk. Is this progression of Lyme or some other inflammation? Will curcumin help? I don't know. The fact that you don't have all the migrating pain and muscle pains and the joint pains may be a good sign that things are getting better with your treatment if you're under treatment. Clearly, you've got another pain syndrome going on. It is possible it is Lyme and cytokine related, but the other thing you might consider doing is making sure that you take some magnesium. So muscle achiness can be from two reasons. One is cytokines, all right, in which case curcumin helps. So I would recommend, in case this is part of cytokines that's giving you the muscle pains, is to use the curcumin, as I've mentioned tonight, 500 milligrams 3 times a day, okay? But the other thing is, generally, in the US at least, and probably most of the world, most of our food tends to be nutrient deficient these days. Our soils have become depleted, particularly of magnesium. So most of us, through our diet, don't get enough magnesium. And you need magnesium. Magnesium helps your muscles function. And if you're magnesium short, or you don't have enough magnesium in you, you may develop these chronic achiness kind of pain syndromes as well too. So one thing I would consider doing is getting going on some magnesium. The magnesium form salt I like is magnesium malate. Sometimes magnesium citrate can help. And Thorne makes a combination called magnesium citramate, for instance, that is a mix of both magnesium malate and magnesium citrate. I like using that. It's a 150 milligram pill. I usually like having people take about 400 to 600 milligrams at bedtime. Be aware with magnesium, when you take it, if you're taking too much relative to what you can handle, you might get diarrhea. Just back down on the amount. Magnesium attracts water into the intestines, which can loosen your stool up, all right? So your limiting factor on magnesium is that. The other thing is sometimes pain in the thighs or any major muscle group may be due to nerve pinching in the back. So make sure that you have your doctor, your Lyme doc, or your primary care doctor do some neurologic assessment to make sure you're not having some problem with back, pinching of the nerves in the back that's resulting in muscle pain or muscle spasm as well too. All right. So those are some things that I would consider trying for that. All right. Good luck to you, Sarah. Thank you for that question. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, let's go back. All right, hello, Jennifer. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I have been under treatment for Lyme for 14 months. My biggest persisting symptoms are exhaustion, tinnitus, and hearing loss and brain fog. I had my lithium levels checked and they were very, very low. So I'm going to be starting lithium orotate. I'm hoping that helps with the brain fog. I have seen an ear, nose, and throat doctor for tinnitus and hearing loss, but no real answers. Do you have any ideas on ways to alleviate the tinnitus and hearing loss? Will the lithium orotate help with that too? Thanks for running these webinars. You're welcome, Jennifer. So some things to think about, okay? And I'm going to actually just go back to I'm going to repost so the live participants can see it. I'm posting the beginning part of your question here, all right? And so I can look back at it too. I just have to refamiliarize myself with part of this. So your persisting symptoms are exhaustion and tinnitus and the brain fog, okay? So first of all, one thing that can help with tinnitus, a couple of things that can help, or a few things that can help with tinnitus. It's growing, the list grows as I think about it. One is the herb called ginkgo biloba. Ginkgo, many of you may be familiar with, is an herb we recommend in people with Alzheimer's. It can seem to help with thinking. The way that it works is it makes red blood cells more flexible, so that when the blood is moving through the very narrow small blood vessels, it flows better and further deep into the tight areas of our blood vessels, which increases blood flow, all right? And that can help with tinnitus, all right? So ginkgo biloba, 80 milligrams 2 times a day is one thing that I would consider for you. The lithium may or may not help, 5 milligrams 3 times a day, all right? But this situation where you have neurologic dysfunction, which is your hearing loss, tinnitus, even some of the brain fog, coupled with exhaustion, is a kind of picture you might see with mitochondria dysfunction. Remember, I was talking about mitochondria being the energy factories earlier tonight, okay? And I need to get in and update my article on mitochondria, but take a listen to I think the first or second question of tonight, tomorrow, or later after I get the recording taken care of, where I talk about my plan to repair mitochondria and the nerves, and you need to do that. And that involves using NT-factor, either Cystoplus, NAC, which I use a product called Cystoplus, or glutathione, and being on acetyl-L-carnitine if you don't eat red meat, and then also taking some coenzyme Q10 if you're not treating yourself for Babesia, all right? You don't want to use that with Babesia treatment. There is a written article I have in the Treat Lyme book that I just need to tweak a little bit, so it's not totally current. But if you were not participating in the beginning of the webinar tonight, tomorrow listen to the recording where you see where I gave a comprehensive idea on how to use these supplements that I just told you about, okay? But yeah, you can make a real difference by fixing your mitochondria, actually. All right, mitochondria are the energy factories found in every one of our cells. And again, I had a whole explanation about that earlier tonight. All right. Good luck to you, Jennifer. All right. Hello, Jen. Does LDI work for co-infections? Bartonella seems to be my biggest issue, and I'm wondering what other options there are here. Okay. So everyone, I have an article that I have posted about low-dose immunotherapy. It's even got some videos with it. LDI stands for low-dose immunotherapy. And what I will tell you is it's new. I still consider it experimental. The doctor that first developed this treatment is basically in February of 2015. He started using it to treat Lyme disease. His name is Ty Vincent from Alaska. He developed this treatment as an outgrowth from an older type of treatment that many of us use called low-dose allergy therapy. And basically what we're doing with either LDI or LDA is we're mixing two things together, and we give it to you, okay? The two things we mix together is an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, and we mix it with the thing that we want you to stop reacting against, okay? So in the case of allergies, we would give you a mix of really low doses of things you might be allergic to. In the case of Lyme, we would give you things that we think your immune system is overreacting to. And that would be, it could be a mix of Lyme and Bartonella and Babesia. It could be mycoplasma, it could be yeast, whatever it is we think you're overreacting to. What we do is we give you microscopic amounts, super diluted amounts of the substance that you're reacting to, and glucuronidase, okay? So how does this work? Well, so many of you know I keep talking about cytokines, all right? So cytokines are made by white blood cells. And that is a type of inflammation that we call Th1 inflammation. It's a group of cells that are all collectively put under something called Th1 inflammation. These are the cells that help attack germs, all right? There's another type of inflammation called Th2 inflammation. And this is inflammation caused by allergies, all right? And that is basically going to involve antibodies and things that are part of allergic reaction. And there's some cytokines over here as well, too, all right? So Th1, Th2. There's a type of cell up here that is supposed to regulate Th1 and regulate Th2, all right? That type of cell is something called a T regulatory cell. And there is a theory in allergies that sometimes we don't have enough T regulatory cells, so Th2 goes out of control. It just becomes too much. And if we don't have enough T regulatory cells regulating Th1, same thing. It might go out of control and you get too much inflammation, all right? So what Ty Vincent believes is that people's Lyme symptoms are all excess Th1 inflammation. And all we need to do is cause increased T regulatory cells to decrease the Th1 inflammation, and therefore people's Lyme symptoms will get better, all right? Now, I am concerned about Ty Vincent's theory. I think it's got holes in it, all right? And in fact, he's even been known to give, at least in what he describes in his trainings, he's been known to give acute Lyme LDI instead of giving antibiotics, and I just think that is irresponsible because in an acute setting, antibiotics will wipe out Lyme, and I think that's irresponsible, okay? Now, Ty would say you use LDI just by itself. You don't need to, even in chronic setting, use just LDI by itself, and he claims improvements in about 80% of his patients to 90% of patients. I have recently started using LDI in my practice, but I only have about 7 people on it, and I'm just trying it very slowly to decide if I think this is a good idea or not. I, though, require people when they do LDI with me to stay on antibiotics, and here's why. So the problem with increasing T regulatory cells is they may decrease Th1 inflammation. It's possible, in theory, we can knock this inflammation down too much. You want to have a degree of inflammation. You want to have a degree of activity of Th1 cells to fight your infection, all right? And if you knock it down too much, we might cause Lyme to become more aggressive, all right? So I don't like not using it with antibiotics, all right? Can it work for Bartonella? Yeah. Can it work for Lyme? Yeah. Can it work for Babesia? Yeah. But I will tell you, anyone using it, it is still very much in an experimental phase, even in the hands of Ty Vincent, who thinks it is the thing that is going to save the world for people for Lyme. I don't think we know long enough yet because people haven't been on it for years that we know down the road, are we causing problems or not? Can people get benefit? Yep. And I think that if you're going to do it, you have to go into it with the idea in mind of knowing we don't know what the long-term consequences are, but I still think people ought to be on antibiotics when they try it, or that, or herbal antimicrobials. By antibiotics, I mean prescriptions, or I mean herbal antimicrobials too, okay? And a few people that I've tried it on, I'm starting to have some success. I'll be glad over time as I gain more experience using this with some of my patients to report back to you. I will let you know Ty Vincent is not a Lyme literate medical doctor, so he is working just in this corner of managing Lyme with his LDI, but he's not somebody that understands, I think, all the other nuances that happen in this complex illness, all right? But I think it's a novel thing to try. And so it is something you could consider trying. I will let you know there's occasional people that write into me that try LDI, not that I put them on, but others put them on, that have huge flares in their symptoms and they don't get better. They stay bad, okay? But I don't think that's predominant. I think Ty may be right. Maybe 80% of people get some benefit, but I don't know that for sure because I haven't used it long enough in my practice to tell for sure, all right? So if you want to see in writing the things I just described, take a look here. I'm just going to do a quick screen share here. And I'm going to do it this way. Let me make sure I can get the right screen up. I hope that makes it so it's not black for you right now. And so where you want to go is look in my table of contents. Look in the Treat Lyme book under the immune system chapter. Take a look at this article called LDI, Bring on the Regulators, okay? And so as you know, I have already said that this increases T regulatory cells. There's a whole recording from one of my other webinars here. I talk about cytokines. I talk about my concerns. I talk about beta-glucuronidase. All of that is in this article that you will find in the immune system chapter in the Treat Lyme book, okay? All right, let me go back here. All right, so I hope that gives you the information you need, all right? Okay, and I hope that didn't turn out black. I loaded the page in a different way, which I know probably looked weird at first, but I hope everyone was able to see that, all right? Jen, thank you for that question, and good luck to you. All right, hold on here just a minute, everyone. I need a sip of water. Hello, David. Let's see. I am healthy and was bitten by a tick 2 weeks ago. Not ill, no bullseye rash. What should I do to prevent getting Lyme disease? My doctor prescribed 2 100 milligram doxycycline tablets. Is this adequate? Should I get the tick tested? Where and how? So, David, unfortunately, you saw a doctor that followed what I will call the most ridiculous recommendations that I have ever seen, put out by a group called the Infectious Disease Society of America. They advocate that in the setting of an acute tick bite, using 200 milligrams of doxycycline to wipe out Lyme. The problem is they made their determination to do that based on one study. And in the study, they did not follow the patients that they made this recommendation in after 30 days to see who went on and still developed Lyme disease. It's a ridiculous recommendation. The ILADS, the International Lyme and Associated Diseases Society, in its most recent guidelines that were published in late 2014, look at the science around that recommendation and absolutely say it's a horrible recommendation, okay? So what I want to let you know is I don't consider you've been treated, all right? Now, where should you be the most concerned about getting Lyme? Okay, so not every tick that you get bit by has Lyme, but if you live in certain areas of the country, you have a greater risk of it having Lyme. So for instance, New Jersey tick studies say that about 95% of ticks carry Lyme. So if you get bit by a tick in New Jersey, you should be on antibiotics for at least a month, in my opinion, actually 3 weeks to 4 weeks, to prevent Lyme disease. That's my opinion. Now, that is not the recommendation of the Infectious Disease Society of America, right? In fact, if it's anywhere on the East Coast, I think you should. Depending on where, and I actually am fairly liberal in my practice. I personally think that we should be putting people that get tick bites, because I see the devastating consequences of this illness, on at least 3 weeks of antibiotics. And doxycycline is a good choice to do that. Now, you could send that tick off to see if it did have Lyme. The trouble is it may take you 2 or 3 weeks to get the results back. And in the meantime, the Lyme has a greater chance of kind of getting stirred up. Your best chance of preventing Lyme disease from a tick bite, getting it all knocked out, is if you get put on 3 weeks of antibiotics within that first month of, start 3 weeks of antibiotics within the first month of your tick bite. I don't know who you're going to get to do this for you, but what I want to let you know is that it's an inadequate, horrible way of treating Lyme disease. I think it's ridiculous that they recommend that, all right? So good luck to you. I wish I had better news for you than that. All right. Hello, Jackie. Let's see. Good evening, Dr. Marty. Good evening. Let's see. I have Lyme, Babesia, likely Bartonella for 23 years. My normal body temp, since I can remember, is 97.1 to 97.7. I notice temp is 99.5 most late afternoons. If I wake up 4 to 6 a.m. and take the temp, it's 96.2. Is this Lyme, Babs, or Bart? Why does this happen? What does this mean? So, Lyme disease, Babesia, Bartonella increase cytokines, okay? And cytokines can interfere with how the brain regulates your thyroid system and all your hormonal systems, even the adrenals, all right? So what happens is there's an area of the brain called the hypothalamus and pituitary. It's the governor of your hormonal systems. And it is supposed to regulate the thyroid. And to regulate the thyroid, it makes a chemical called thyroid stimulating hormone, also called TSH. The conventional model in thyroid medicine is that we measure a TSH. And if it comes back normal, we think the brain always knows what is right. And if your TSH is normal, we automatically assume as physicians, we meaning the other guys, not me, but most MDs, most NDs probably, look at that TSH and they say, wow, the brain thinks your thyroid's normal. It's normal. I don't care that you have symptoms of low thyroid. All right. So, but the other thing you can check in is to see what your true thyroid levels are. So thyroid is made by the thyroid gland here, and there's two thyroid hormones it makes. One is called T3 thyroid. The other one's called T4 thyroid. And usually what's going to happen is the lab is going to give you a number, but it's a range. So for instance, depending on the lab, your normal thyroid levels might be 5 to 12. And if you get somebody that has a thyroid level of 7 or 8, well, guess what? You can still give more thyroid and still be within normal range, all right? So what I do in this disorder, knowing that the brain, because of cytokines, may not correctly interpret what's happening, it means it may not correctly make TSH. I ignore TSH levels, all right? Another way of looking at this that I describe it as is that area of the brain metaphorically gets drunk on cytokines, all right? And we all know drunks talk, right? They put out words, but who knows if their words are true and if they really are relatively meaningful to what the situation is, all right? So the brain is talking, it's making TSH, but it's drunk on cytokines. So I don't know if that TSH means anything. So I don't judge how your thyroid is based on TSH. Rather, I look at symptoms and I look at the T3 and T4 level. And if somebody's got symptoms of low thyroid and they have a T4 and a T3 that are in normal range, but there's room we can move up, I will give thyroid. All right. So what are symptoms of low thyroid? Well, fatigue is one. All right. But Lyme and Bartonella and Babesia can give that for other reasons. All right. But cold intolerance. If I've got a person that is intolerant of cold, that is a suggestion of low thyroid. Low body temps under 98.2 can be a suggestion of low thyroid. Hair loss can be a suggestion of low thyroid. Achiness can be a suggestion of low thyroid. Dry skin can be a suggestion of low thyroid. Change in your periods can be a suggestion of low thyroid, okay? All of those things can suggest it, but the hallmark symptom to me is basically the lower body temps or cold intolerance. Those are the main ones that I'll follow, all right? So I suspect you have low thyroid. If you were my patient, just based on what I see here, I would probably put you on thyroid medication. And I would start either a synthetic called Synthroid, also known as levothyroxine, at 50 micrograms 1 time a day, or I might use ground up thyroid gland given as something called armor thyroid, also called desiccated thyroid, comes from pork, and I would use that. I tend to like that over the synthetics like a Synthroid because I think it's more bioactive. At least that's what I see in my practice, all right? And if you do a desiccated thyroid or armor thyroid, it's 30 milligrams 1 time a day. All right. So those are just some things for you to think about. You can read more about this in the thyroid chapter. Let me just go ahead and show you where that is, or in the hormone chapter. All right. So I'm going to do a screen share again, but it's going to be in that weird way where you get this rifling picture. And then let me get to the right screen where you can see things. All right. So I'm back here in the Treat Lyme book again, and go here to the table of contents. Take a look at the chapter on hormones right here. And there's a whole article I have on called Heat Up, Speed Up about thyroid and adrenals. And it has that whole argument that I just made with you. Okay. All right. So take a look at that. That'll give you more of the specifics, or listen to the recording again tomorrow. Okay. All right. Let me go back here again. Stop screen sharing. All right. So I hope that gives you some useful information there. Okay. All right. Let me get out of there. Oh, let's see here. Oh, I was going to get rid of the wrong question. Hold on here a minute. Hello, Lynn. Let's see. Is there benefit to using food grade hydrogen peroxide internally? All right. So hydrogen peroxide is an oxidizing agent. And there are other oxidizing agents you may have heard of. There is ozone, there's IV ozone, rectal ozone. There's also a type of treatment called UV irradiation of your blood. There's also high dose vitamin C, given like 30 to 50 grams, more than you could stomach if you did it orally. You'd have to do it IV. All right, so what do oxidizing agents do? Well, oxidizing agents damage membranes and they damage DNA. And so they can kill germs. The problem is they may damage our cell membranes and our DNA, all right? So generally, I don't care for oxidative medicine treatments. Now, I know there's some of my colleagues that use it. Spinagle, for instance, down in Florida, does a lot of IV oxidizing agent treatments. First of all, I don't like doing them because, or I don't like them because I only see them helpful in about 40% of the time. I don't think they're really a great killer of germs. And secondly, I am worried about long-term consequences if this becomes a stable part of your regimen, all right? So can it kill if you take it internally? Yeah. Do I think it's a great idea? Probably not. I think you wind up leading to more damage problems down the road than what it's worth, okay? That's my opinion. And that's how I go about hydrogen peroxide too, all right? All right, so thank you for that question. There's an article I actually do have about hydrogen peroxide and other oxidizing agent treatments if you want to hear more about that. And you can find that again in the Treat Lyme book, okay? All right. Hello, Victoria. Let's see. Do you think Lyme can cause autoimmune disease? And if the Lyme is treated, can the autoimmune be cured? So, it's a great question. I do think Lyme can, in some, trigger autoimmune illness, where the immune system triggered by Lyme turns on us, attacks us, all right? Now, the infectious disease doctors and their guidelines would have us believe that everyone that remains sick after Lyme has something called post-Lyme syndrome, and that probably that's all because of autoimmune illness. And I think they're wrong, okay? I mean, I think we still treat on an ongoing basis, but for a fraction of people, it is possible that they do have an autoimmune illness triggered by Lyme. In those situations, what I like to do, if I've treated somebody, say, for 2 or 3 years, they're not getting better, maybe even 1 to 2 years, I might try a novel treatment for autoimmune illness in Lyme called a low-dose naltrexone, all right? Naltrexone has some evidence in certain autoimmune illnesses that if you use it, you can help them. So the autoimmune illnesses that naltrexone has been shown with science to help is fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, and Crohn's disease, all right, which is an inflammatory condition of the gut. There's also some evidence that might help in Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is a thyroid illness too. And when I use it in people with Lyme, I see that maybe about 10% of people get some benefit from it, all right? So what is naltrexone? Well, naltrexone is manufactured as a 50 milligram pill. We give it in Lyme and in autoimmune conditions as a 1.5 milligram pill. We may work you up to 4.5 milligrams, okay? So we give it as something called low-dose naltrexone. And because we give it as low doses, it has to be mixed up by a compounding pharmacy that has to mix it up in those smaller amounts, all right? Naltrexone is manufactured to help with people that have narcotic overdoses. And so what it does is it binds to a group of receptors in our body called endorphin receptors, which are also the narcotic receptors, all right? And what it does when it's there is, and so endorphin, we have our own narcotic system too called endorphins. And we manufacture endorphins to help regulate pain, but our endorphins also regulate the immune system. So now if you block the endorphin receptor sites for some period of time, what can happen is the brain doesn't like that. It sends out a bunch of signals. So what happens is as the naltrexone wears away, those endorphin sites get flooded with endorphins. And that seems to have an effect of regulating the immune system. All right. So you could try the low dose naltrexone. There's a whole to see if that's part of what's happening with you here. I do want to do a screen share here because I want to show another article to you too about this idea of what do you do when you're not getting better. All right. So this is a screen share. I know it looks weird until I get over to the right. Okay, there we are. All right. So I'm going back to the Treat Lyme book. And I wanted to show you, actually, I'm going to show you in the Lyme disease treatment guidelines. I want you to take a look at the Lyme disease treatment guidelines, all right? So before you decide if your treatment is not working, look at the basic steps of the successful treatment recipe, which is my Lyme disease treatment guideline, all right? So everyone through your treatment should be taking steps to get at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep, all right? And I give you recommendations in here on how to do that. 7 to 9 hours of sleep restores the immune system and lowers cytokines, all right? Second thing you should do is take a look at the diet I recommend, which is designed to help your mitochondria and brain function do better. It is a paleo type diet that helps many in Lyme, so make sure you're on a good diet. Number 3, lower cytokines by being on curcumin or other ways of doing that I mentioned here. Number 4, be on an adaptogen, something that helps your body deal with stress. And for that, I like the ashwagandha. It's a Chinese Ayurvedic medicine herb. Number 5, correct hormonal problems. And there's things you can do here without needing a doctor to help you that I recommend. Number 6, be on a good multivitamin. Number 7, if you've got too many yeast in your intestines, get them out. And I tell you here how to figure out if you have too many yeast, and also the herbal or natural medicine steps you can use to get rid of them, or even prescription options, okay? Number 8, treat your Lyme infection. I give you ideas on how to do that. Number 9, do some basic detoxification steps. Number 10, deal with your co-infections. Number 12, do exercise. And number 13, these are things to do if you're not getting better, all right? One is to explore trying out some different detoxification treatments, and I give those 2 here. Another thing to consider is getting rid of biofilms, which are slime layers that cover your Lyme germ. Another thing to look at is maybe you got a chronic virus infection. Another one is you could have mitochondrial dysfunction. I've talked about that a number of times tonight. Another one is you haven't dealt with your co-infections adequately. Another one is deal with autoimmune illness. That's the whole low-dose naltrexone I was just talking about. And here's the link to that article, okay? The other thing you could do is deal with low-dose immunotherapy. And I just talked about that earlier with another one. And finally, make sure you don't have too many yeast that are bothering you, okay? So if you want to get well, everyone, make sure that throughout your treatment, you are following all the basic steps within the successful treatment recipe that I talked about. And at about 6 to 9 months, if you're not getting better, start exploring some of those other items that may be holding you back that you'll find in step 13 of the successful treatment recipe, my Lyme disease treatment guidelines. Okay, there's a lot of things you can try that might start moving your treatment forward. These are ideas you can even bring to your physician to talk with them about and see if they'd be interested in helping explore some of those things with you as well too. All right. Let me go ahead and move on here. Good luck to you, Victoria. Hello, Val. Let's see. The 5 milligram lithium orotate suggested for tremors and jerking motions has a warning label, not to be taken in conjunction with SSRIs or MAOs unless advised by a health provider. Would this also include venlafaxine, which is an SNRI? My husband takes 100 milligrams per day. So, they put that on there because they are told to. The issue is not, so lithium orotate, which is 5 milligrams of lithium 3 times a day. That's how I recommend doing it, 15 milligrams, is a lot different than using high doses of lithium that we use in mental health disorders like bipolar disorder, where we're going to use it as a 600 to 900 milligram pill. At the doses that I recommend you use lithium orotate, it's a nutrient used by nerve cells to work better. And it will not cause problems with SSRIs, SNRIs, or MAO inhibitors, okay? So go ahead and use it, all right? I think they're being overly precautious with that, all right? All right, good luck to you, Val. Hello, Casey. Let's see. Can Banderol and Cemento be taken in place of antibiotics for prevention of Lyme? Oops, I answered that one earlier. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Let's see. Hello, Paul. I'm about to restart oral antibiotics using clarithromycin and Plaquenil. If I have lingering BART, is this okay or should treat for the BART first? I treated BART in 2012 with aggressive antibiotics, but feel it may not be gone. Foot pain and neuro symptoms. Thank you. So this is not an adequate treatment for Bartonella. This is not even an adequate treatment for Lyme, Paul. So as I mentioned earlier tonight, a number of my colleagues will use Plaquenil to treat the cyst form of Lyme, and also Plaquenil can help clarithromycin work more strongly, by the way, too. But the problem with Plaquenil is there's competing science that shows it may increase the cyst form of Lyme. So many of you are familiar with the idea that Lyme exists in 3 forms, and you have to treat all 3 forms to get well. So you need to treat the spirochete, which is the corkscrew-looking thing. You need to treat Lyme that lives inside of your cells called intracellular Lyme, and then you need to treat the cyst form of the germ. The clarithromycin that you would be taking is good for intracellular Lyme and spirochete Lyme, but it is not going to do anything for cyst Lyme. And I don't think the Plaquenil will either. I don't like using it, all right? So to get at this better for Lyme, I would add grapefruit seed extract as an herbal supplement. 250 milligrams twice a day is a good cyst killer, all right? But clarithromycin is not good by itself to get at Bartonella. And if you think you have Bartonella, this is not a Bartonella treatment. Using the clarithromycin, you could add the prescription antibiotic Bactrim, or you could add the prescription antibiotic rifampin, and those would turn this into a BART treatment, all right? The herbs that you could add to clarithromycin would be something called Hetunia and Sitta acuta. Those 2 herbs work as a BART treatment without clarithromycin, maybe about 70% of the time. Clarithromycin may help that work a little bit better. Clarithromycin with Bactrim, clarithromycin with rifampin, I think helps with BART about 80 to 85% of the time, all right? Let me show you a quick screen share so you can read more about effective BART treatments. And I know this is going to be a screen share that looks weird at first here. Let me get over here. All right. So if you want to know how to treat Bartonella, take a look at the Treat Lyme book in the Infection Treatment Plans chapter and go ahead and look at the article called Kills Bartonella, A Brief Guide. And yes, we ought to use a stick of dynamite on it sometime. I updated this article in November of 2015, so it's a very current article. And in here, you're going to find my prescription recommendations as well as herbal recommendations as well, too. All right? And I tell you how to use them, too. All right, let me go back here. Okay, thanks for that question, Paul, and good luck to you. All right, everyone, that's it for me tonight. I've enjoyed visiting with you here. Obviously, I didn't get to all the questions, although I did handle a lot of them tonight. Again, you'll get an email tomorrow morning with a link to the recording of the webinar from tonight. Please take the time tomorrow to sign up for the next webinar, or you can do so here in a moment. In a moment, I'm actually going to go ahead and take you over to treatlyme.net, where you can go ahead and read some of the articles, or you can sign up for one of the one-to-one consults, or you can even start looking at some of the other video recordings that we have there, all right? I asked that you would help support some of the work we're doing here by subscribing to the Treat Lyme book. You'll find that it has great information for you. The way I explain things here is the way I explain things in writing. And in fact, many of the questions people ask me here, it's already written down in the Treat Lyme book. You can start finding that information yourself. And it's very usable. It's the kind of information you can use on your own, or you can even take to your physician who can give you some input on that, okay? So I encourage you to do that. When you support the Treat Lyme book, you're supporting the work that I do in these webinars as well, too. And my goal is to help as many people recover from this horrible illness as possible. So help me to keep doing that. I appreciate if you do that, all right? So I'm going to redirect everyone there here in just a second. I look forward to seeing you next week. Oh, when I trick you over there in a minute, you can sign up for next week's webinar, or the webinar in 2 weeks as well, too. All right? Good night, everyone. Good visiting with you tonight, and good luck with your Lyme disease. Bye-bye.